Seriously, like, all I'm hearing on my TV these days from 9 p.m. every night. Oh, should we go have a chat? Let's go have a chat. Should we go have a chat? Over by the fire pit. Let's have a chat. I've got a text. Anyone? Text? No? Whatever. Birds. Look at my muscles, eh? I bench press lady, no problem. Oh, I can't stand Brain Cell Island, I really can't. Right, anyway, the less said about that, the better. Let's talk about FIRE instead. Let's go! Hey everyone, it's Lewis, back again with another video, and today we're not going to talk about Brain Cell Island, we're going to start some fires up in here instead. Gone from Madonna to the Prodigy in the space of just 2 videos. How eclectic. And hey, if you're new to the channel, please do consider subscribing and setting fire to that like button so that we can get these videos out to more people, grow the channel, and make every quid an absolute force when it comes to personal finance YouTube. Let's get to that 100 subscriber milestone so that we can move on to the next one. But no, don't worry, I'm not talking about that red flickery stuff. Actually, when it comes to FIRE in the financial world, we're instead talking about an entire movement that is dedicated to becoming truly free, where that human potential that you always hear about can really come into its own, and you no longer have to tie yourself down to what you think was the right way of living. Because we're all better than just being born, growing through childhood, turning 18, working for 45 to 50 years, retiring with the bare minimum, and then the circle of life begins all over again. No, we've done the Lion King thing already. But at least Simba got his debut on the channel. Yep, this is Simba. We call our cat Simba. You should have been on that Lion King video, shouldn't you, really? I should have done that instead. He really doesn't want to be here. And so... Yes? Can I help you? Okay. We're just gonna... So what is FIRE? It's actually not a word here, it's an acronym. And it stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. It is the concept of saving as much money as possible and investing that money as soon as possible in order to never need to work a regular 9-to-5 job ever again. It gives you the ability to buy for your future as much of the one commodity that we cannot ever get back. And that's time, not an Apple Watch. You are literally buying yourself more time to focus on the things that matter the most to you. Whether that be turning your passion or passions into income in the form of starting that business that you always wanted to, or spending more quality time with your family, or dedicating yourself to charity work related to something that you truly care for. It could be anything. How it works is simple. You first create a plan to be able to reach your goal. Let's say that you're 20 years old and your goal is to get to £1 million by the age of 45. Whatever the goal is, once it's set, it's time to put it into action. FIRE encourages frugal living, so you'll need to cut down on your expenses. But this is where it can get a little bit tricky, as there are plenty of ways to achieve FIRE, which I'll detail in this video of course. And I don't necessarily believe that people should have to burn every expenditure down to the ground in order to achieve financial independence. How much money you'll need to retire with is completely dependent on your current lifestyle. Bye, Simba. Right, yes, so how much you'll need to retire with is completely dependent on your current lifestyle and if you want to maintain that in retirement. If you're a high spender, you'll obviously need more than most in retirement. If you're quite frugal, then you'll need less. It's a very simple concept. It teaches the power of delayed gratification and good financial discipline. If you're anything like me, you'll soon get hooked on it. So FIRE may be one concept, but there are several different ways in which you can achieve it. Over the years, since its initial development, people have been getting very creative and creating different ways to get to FIRE in order to make it as flexible as possible. And this is the beauty of it. You don't necessarily have to go scorched earth and burn everything down to the ground right now, sacrifice every little expense that you make in order to be better off in retirement. You have a choice. You just need to understand that unless you're literally in the top 1% of the world's richest, no one can have it all. And those who do have it all started from zero. Jeff Bezos pretty much lived in a tiny box of an office filled with books, barely having room for a computer, and had Amazon.com literally spray painted on the walls during the formative years of Amazon. In the words of Dave Ramsey, he lived like no one else so that later he could live like no one else. So right now I'll get into the different versions of FIRE and maybe you'll learn something from one of them or even maybe all of them. Now admittedly, since it started, the several different iterations of FIRE have gotten a little out of control. There's even one called Disney FIRE. Financial independence, retire early, haha. So with that said, I'm only covering the first generation iterations of this movement because I feel like these are the actual ones to consider. But as always, this video isn't financial advice, it's purely for educational purposes. The OG concept of FIRE is traditional FIRE, and I'll go into more detail and the numbers here as there are actual calculations that you'll need to know about. So traditional FIRE is taking all of your current monthly expenses that you want or have to take into retirement with you. That is your rent/mortgage payment, your utilities, your council tax, if you want to stay in the UK that is, your food and clothing, your Netflix subscription, etc, etc. Once you have that number, you multiply it by 12 in order to get your annual expenses number. So for me, at my current lifestyle, that number is £15,350. Do remember, I haven't got any children, we haven't got any kids, we don't own our home just yet, so it isn't as expensive as other people's might be. You then multiply that number by 25 in order to get an amount that you'll need invested and can safely draw down from at a rate of 4% each year in retirement. So for me, this is, in simple numbers, £385,000. However, I'll be completely honest, I want to live a little better than I'm currently doing, so I plan to have much more invested when it's all said and done. But 385k invested into the stock market, compounding and growing at an average rate of, 7 to 8% is all I'll need to live off of for the rest of my life if I want to maintain the current lifestyle that I'm living. However, this may be too simplistic and you might be more comfortable with a different withdrawal rate of 4% each year. So another way of calculating your number and getting to a different result is to take your annual expenses and divide them by 0.03. This formula, for example, is based on an investment portfolio with at least 50% stocks, which can be withdrawn from safely at a rate of 3% each year for 40 years. If I was to calculate my FIRE number in this way, it'd be just over £510,000 instead. So it's all about how you feel you want to live in retirement and you can sustain for several years. So next up is lean FIRE, and this is the more minimalist approach to retirement than the other variations that I'll discuss today. This really is that scorched earth version of FIRE that I briefly mentioned earlier. It is where you simply have enough money invested to cover for your essential monthly expenses for you and your loved ones in retirement. Of course, every person's situation is unique, it is different, and what you might class as an essential expense isn't what necessarily someone else will. The calculation for lean FIRE is as follows. You take your essential monthly expenses only, multiply them by 12, and divide that number by your safety withdrawal rate, which we'll continue to assume is 4% each year. So if I was to cut my expenses down to the bare bones and just get rid of my subscriptions, my yearly expenses would be as this. £1,020 times 12 is £12,240. Divide that by 0.04, I get £306,000. In order to live a minimal lifestyle and cover the essentials, this is how much I'd need invested. Of course, this would allow me to retire much earlier, but I'd be sacrificing those days out, meals out, subscriptions, coffee, etc. that actually make me happy. And I'm not sacrificing my coffee. I don't care what personal finance YouTube says. It ain't happening. Again, I will say that someone's essential expenses will look different to others, but I am just using this as an example to show you how lean FIRE could look for someone. Plus, the cost of living can look drastically different across the UK, especially now in this current climate. For instance, I live in East Sussex, right on the seafront. I mean, I am literally about a 10 to 15 minute walk from the English Channel. My expenses will no doubt look a lot different than someone living much further north of here, like in Burnley for example. Anyway, if you want to keep it simple and just live that minimal lifestyle that all the cool kids are talking about, this is how you do it. Burn it all down to the ground, get one of those coffee presses and wear the one t-shirt for 365 days a year. Only kidding, shout out to Matt Diavella. And then you have F.I.R.E. As you'd expect from the name, this is the complete opposite to Lean Fire. F.I.R.E. is the above average pursuit of financial independence. It is the luxurious lifestyle that you've always wanted, but once you actually can afford, once you achieve it. I would love to be able to say that I'm committed to this version of FIRE, but I'm unsure that I'll ever get there now. Let's get rid of the Ray-Bans. I will consistently look to build my income each and every year and get the majority of it invested, but at the age of 32, it is doubtful I'll get to a number that will allow me to achieve fat FIRE, at least at a decent age. Perhaps I will, maybe this channel takes off, but who knows. These are large numbers that we're talking about, and the more time that is on your side, obviously the better. Anyways, let's get into these big numbers. So in order to set yourself up for a nice lifestyle in retirement, however that might look for you, there is a template to follow for fat FIRE. The general definition is that you must have enough money invested in order to spend at least £100,000 a year in retirement. If you were to follow the 4% rule again, this would mean having to have £2.5 million in your portfolio. But that's just the general rule. Again, your version of Fat FIRE may be completely different from 100k a year spending. A lavish life for you might look more like spending only 50k a year, or spending somewhere in the middle, or maybe even more than 100k. Just remember that whatever you want your number to be, include your essential expenses plus the luxury spending you'd like to do. This could be taking a once-in-a-lifetime holiday every year, or buying brand new cars every time that you want to upgrade or whatever. Maybe it's buying that dream home that you've always wanted. You know, the 7-figure one, enough with the kitchen, big enough to fit an island in. Yeah, I'll keep dreaming. In order to find your number, this one's easy. Just multiply your desired spending number by 25. Yes, this will seem large, but if you have time on your side, if you're in your 20s, maybe early 30s with a decent wage behind you for instance, you could achieve this. Remember the power of compound interest. The more time it has to work for you, the better it will do for you. So we're going to use an example for a 25-year-old who has calculated their fat FIRE number as the previously mentioned £2.5 million. They want to spend approximately 100k a year in retirement, and that is how we got to this number. 100,000 times 25 is 2.5 million. We're going to assume that the ETF they're investing in provides an average annual return of 7%, which is modest, as we know that the S&P 500 returns 10.5% on average historically. Now, we all understand that in order to achieve this version of FIRE, you should be saving as much as possible each and every year. That is the whole point, to fast track your way to retirement. But we still need some kind of template to use this example for. So that's why I'm committing to a certain yearly amount with this example. So this person would need to save £50,000 a year for 20 years in order to achieve their fat FIRE. If they were to consistently increase their income, put more money away as possible, and live a relatively modest life for about 20 years, they could be retiring from the traditional workforce at age 45. That's pretty cool, right? If the ETF that they're investing in does in fact provide the same S&P 500 average return of 10.5%, then it would only take 16 years to retire with investing the same amount each year, ensuring that their retirement is at age 41. The better the return, or the better your savings rate, the more time that you'll buy back for yourself. We now have Barista FIRE. But what on earth is this? Barista FIRE is defined as having enough money to retire early, but using a part-time job for additional income and extra benefits that an employer would provide, such as healthcare and insurances. Because as much as retirement sounds amazing, you still need something to fill your time with. And having enough money invested away in order to fund your lifestyle gives you the choice to do whatever you want. You could literally just serve coffee at your local Costa and be okay with it. For full disclosure, Barista FIRE is probably the type of FIRE that I am committing to in a sense. I want to be able to have enough money behind me to retire at an earlier age than the traditional 65, which will buy me the time to be able to fully focus on building every quid into what I know it can be. The only caveat is I won't be doing this part-time, of course, but I'll be filling my time with something that I truly love. I just won't be covered by the extra insurances and benefits that an employer would provide. If you want this though, then this is the one for you. Barista.FI.RE actually got its name because Starbucks provides healthcare to their part-time employees. So many people quickly saw this as an opportunity, and as such, a new type of FIRE was born. This type can be attractive to people because it doesn't require as much money being saved as some of the previous types. You don't have to accumulate 25 times your yearly expenses. Here's actually how the numbers work. So if you were following traditional FIRE and you have yearly expenses of £30,000 a year, you would have to save £750,000, 25 times your yearly expenses based on that 4% withdrawal rate. Again, if you're 25 years old, this would mean saving 30 grand a year for 12 years using that 10.5% return rate. But with Barista.FI.RE, you'd be pursuing a part-time job with benefits, so you'd be able to supplement additional retirement savings with this. This ensures that you don't have to save nearly as much up front. Instead, you could just save half of your yearly expenses at £15,000, which would be only £375,000 in total, which would take you only 7.5 years to do on these calculations. The rest can be saved using the part-time job that could pay the extra £15,000 depending on the hourly rate and how much you work. If it is doing something that you truly enjoy, you'd actually be surprised by how much more time you'd want to commit to as opposed to having to. And of course, you get the extra benefits that your employer provides. Just make sure that you commit to an employer that provides decent benefits for all of its employees, not just the full-time ones. As you can see with Barista.FI.RE, you are still able to fill up your time with something during the days, but you get to spend more time with friends, family, and doing the things that you actually want to in life. So you can see how this will appeal to the masses. Next up on this list is Coast Fire, and no, this one doesn't require you to become a Coast Guard or live by the sea. What Coast Fire actually is not having to constantly put money away for the rest of your life for retirement. It is the ability to live off of your net worth once you reach a certain mark and then let compound interest do the rest for you. It allows you to coast to financial independence. So let's say that you somehow inherit £750,000 tomorrow. You wouldn't need to work another day in your life. But why though, I hear you asking? 750k is nice, but that's not going to see me until I pass away. I'm only 22 years old. Well, that would be true if you only saved the 750k. But if you invested it with a return of 7 to 8%, or even better, the 10.5% that we discussed with the S&P 500, compound interest will simply work for you to give you an annual return on that initial investment. Enough for you to live off of. When you have your money invested, not only does the initial principal that you put down gain interest, but so does the interest on top of that interest, and so on. Plus, if the ETF that you invest in pays a dividend and you reinvest the dividends, that's even more money, making you even more money. Using an amazing chart that the awesome people at Wallet Burst put together that I'll link below down in the description, you can see just how much you'll need saved in order to achieve Coast Fire at a certain age. For an example, for me at 32 years old, I'll need to have 155k invested in order to support a lifestyle of 30k annual expenses in retirement. If I wanted to bump that up to 50k expenses in retirement, I'll have to have 259k invested instead. However, if you're only 22, you'll only need to invest an initial 159k to support 50k a year expenses lifestyle in retirement. See how time really is on your side when you're younger? If you've got 10 years on me and you're financially savvy and continue to increase your income in order to invest more, you'll get there in no time, and you'll only need 100k less than what I do. So that's a lesson to 22-year-old me for sure. Once you've got just that short of 160k invested into an ETF that provides a return of 8%, compound interest will just do the rest for you. By age 65, that initial investment of 159k without any further work from you will be worth almost £5 million. In contrast, for me, if I was to have that 259k invested, it would be just over £3.5 million by age 65. Again, another example of time really being on your side when you're younger. To go to the extreme side of things and to maybe scare you just a little bit, if you're 60 years old and want to coast to retirement without any prior money invested, and you want to support retirement expenses of £50,000, you will need to have £1,015,000 invested. Ouch. Best buy that lottery ticket now, eh? For me, I truly enjoy the process of investing, so I don't want to coast my way to retirement. I want to earn and invest as much as I can in order to enjoy the lifestyle that I want and eventually be in a position to give money and then pass it on to future generations of my family when I'm gone. But Coast.FI is a revolutionary way at looking at retirement for younger people, showing that you really don't have to put as much money as you think you do into the stock market in order to retire nicely. So the last one that we have here is SLOW-FIRE. Yeah, it's SLOW-FIRE. Had to put the slowest one last. This is for those who want to enjoy life whilst investing on the way to financial independence. So yes, obviously by the name, this will take you more time, but it will allow you to maybe not be a money-saving robot each and every month or year that you're committing to this. Delayed gratification is amazing, but if you're attracted to SLOW-FIRE, you probably think that immediate gratification is pretty awesome too. FIRE can be tricky, it can be difficult, and it can be overwhelming. In order to really achieve any of the previously mentioned types, you need to earn more money in order to be able to save and invest more money. And you really have to be very aggressive with that in saving and investing. You need to lower the cost of your current living, and you need to earn higher returns on your investments. And short of YOLOing all of your money into a dangerous crypto, where else can you do that if you're already 40 years old? Even if you're much younger, you might be thinking that all of the above is a little too much for you. Well, here is the option for you then. SLOW-FIRE embraces the ability to live life on your terms now, with a full-time job of course, but strikes a fine balance between doing this and saving for retirement. Really, the most simplest way to do this is to cut down your monthly essential expenses so you have enough money left over each month to then enjoy life, also known as disposable income. Going out for meals, having holidays, etc. You still of course invest some money for the future, but it doesn't necessarily matter how much, just as long as you are. It might just be simply having the goal of maxing out your lifetime ISA each year and nothing else. By the way, if you do that with a stocks and shares lifetime ISA and max out £4,000 each year from the age of 18 to the age of 50, you will have over £1 million just from doing that. So it is definitely achievable. It's nowhere near as fast paced as trying to save and invest 25 times your annual expenses as quickly as possible. Just know that of course, it does take more than just contributing toward your workplace pension each year. The goal is to still reach financial independence, but there's no exact number or target date for the most part. It's that weird middle ground between retirement, I'll think about that later mate, no chance, and put everything into the stock market now. Clearly this type of FIRE isn't for me, but I can see how it would be for others. It's kind of funny, but in a way I'm in some kind of weird middle ground between barista FIRE and SLOW-FIRE. Yes, I'm obviously doing everything that I can to increase my income and decrease my expenses in order to save more and invest more each month and each year. However, my girlfriend is most definitely a SLOW-FIRE type of person, and I do want to enjoy life whilst investing towards my future, so it's not out of the question for us to go on a couple of holidays this year or even go to Nando's every now and then. Especially now, considering we've not been able to do those things for the best part of 2.5 years thanks to the pandemic, so yeah. I will eventually quit the traditional workforce because it's not something that I want to be a part of for the rest of my natural born working life. I don't want to get caught up in the rat race, it's that simple. I used to think that I did, but that's changed. I found a true love, a real passion, and that's right here, teaching people about money. As always, I remind everyone that I'm not here to tell you how to manage your money. It's not my place to do this, but using this platform for educational and sometimes like with the cat, entertainment purposes, I feel like I found my place. I hope that you all find your true calling as well, or that you've already found it, and maybe a certain type of fire can get you there. Anyway, as always, I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. What type of fire are you attracted to, if any, and are you going to commit to any? If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel for more money related content. I post videos every Monday and Friday at 6:30 PM UK time, so stick around for all of that. Also, make sure to follow me on all of my socials down below for even more. Grab your free money and stocks using some of the links down below in the description. And remember, until next time, every quid counts. See you soon.